Yeah.
Okay. So, do I have to use this?
Yes.
Kind of, okay. Sounds really odd. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
You guys are all here at 9 in the morning on a Friday to talk about numbers. That's awesome. Right. Okay, so who's a statistician or data analyst in the crowd? Right on. Who depends on someone who's a statistician or data analyst in the crowd? A lot more of you. Okay. So I have my notes like every other good math and science person, so I don't get lost and ramble on about a story. That means absolutely nothing. So, like I was introduced, I'm Apryl DeLancey, president of Social Age Media. We are a strategic digital marketing agency that targets the millennial consumer. And our clients are under the lifestyle umbrella of hospitality, destinations, and lifestyle. So we have clients that are fun places you want to go, like Marriott Hotels and the Tourist Office of Spain, and fun things you want to do, like fourth gear flyer surf mats, Rider Sack surf shop, Oban shafts, golf, all that kind of fun stuff. So if you want to have fun, we obviously know where to have it. So numbers scare people, as we all kind of know, period. Is anybody afraid of numbers? Don't be afraid. They're your friend. But I've capitalized that on that for my entire career, counting on people being afraid of numbers and afraid to use spreadsheets. And I know other data people, I see other data people here smiling, and you know what I'm talking about. But when I started my career, I was in sales, and before I went back to college, and I dealt with numbers then, and did my undergrad in math and science, and then did my graduate degree at a medical university studying biostatistics, bioinformatics, and epidemiology. And I figured out I did not want to be in academia or healthcare. So I was a statistician for a political research firm right out of college, and then did forecasting for Warner Brothers before I moved on to big Omnicom agencies, and then finally starting my own this year. So I've had a lot of experience in watching numbers and trends, and even when I was back in grad school, there was big data. Oh, there's all this big data. So let's just stop and define what big data is. Does anybody have a good definition, they think?
Numbers.
Numbers, okay. Anyone else?
It's more than you can have on your personal computer.
More than you can have on your PC. That's good. Good.
Structured and unstructured data that covers everything.
That's really good. Structured and unstructured data that covers everything. So I'll read you this definition. It says, big data is extremely large data sets that can be analyzed to reveal patterns, trends, and associations, especially relating to human behavior and interactions. The data sets are generally so large that it's too difficult to use traditional technology or methods for collection and analysis to make sense of it. So it's more data than we can actually even really think about if you think of what's big data. And it really gained popularity like over a decade ago, where we're talking about genomics, astrophysics, internet search, and machine learning. And that did a lot of really great discoveries, especially in genomics and cracking the DNA code. So big data had a big role in that. And it was fantastic for that. But it's got its issues as well, as we all know. So in 2009, there was a project that was meant to identify flu outbreaks. That was, I don't know if you ever remember Google flu trends, where you can type in where flu outbreaks were. You know, it was really neat. It was great for hypochondriacs, especially. Oh wait, do I have the flu? My God, there's a concentration. And then the problem was with it is that they were wrong 4 years in a row. They over-predicted, and it was too, you know, it was not correct. And it, you know, that's why we don't see it today. Big data has haters, as you know, so I'll read you a couple quotes. These are great. So Engadget ran a quote from Richard Salwerman. You guys know who he is? He's the founder of TED Talks. So he hates big data. He says, I think there will be a pushback saying, we don't understand all this effing data. He was referring to the data.gov website that is an online repository for big data that's kind of a big political thing, and he dismisses it as, you know, politicians just talking. Okay, maybe, maybe not. Then Ad Age ran a story just in September, said it's not big data, it's the big idea, stupid. Okay, it says we have infobesity. So think about that, infobesity, which is a really, I think it's a great word for how much data we have. But what this article does, and I'm happy to, the articles I'm citing, I'll put up on the meetup in a comment so you guys can read them all. They're all from this year. One of the things from last year, but really, this reminds us that it's insights that are the important thing, and that's what we were talking about earlier over there. It's not always so much the data, it's the insights, and we'll get to that a little bit more. But one of my favorite points is from a little site called Read Write. Say it 5 times fast. Read, write, read, write. The bigger the data set, the bigger the chance for completely misreading the data, right? I can totally attest to this. Have you ever had one data set and 2 people analyze it and give you 2 completely different, right? So imagine the bigger the data set, how many variations of that there is, right? So I call that analysis paralysis, right? You know, you get into the you go down the rabbit hole, you're in a spreadsheet, or you're too close to it and you think you know, and that's part of the problem, is you think you know and you don't want to see what the data is really saying. I mean, it happens to all of us, right? It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, how good you are, what kind of machine you have, how much backup, you have to have a second set of eyes on things. The more complex it gets, wouldn't you guys agree? Mm-hmm. The more complex the data. So, does it have to be that complex? Well, let me tell you a couple of personal examples about people making data too complex and examples of making it simple. So I was involved in a new business pitch for a financial services company, and their social media expert was so proud of herself saying, hey, yep, one of the other vendors, they said that they can tell me whether or not my client drinks red or white wine. And I went, okay, so you're selling retirement. Why would you talk to your audience about red or white wine? They were looking to reach their audience on social platforms. You know, back then it was like they wanted, you know, Facebook and Twitter were the big, here's what we have to do. And so I said, so you're going to go on Facebook and Twitter and talk to your clients about red and white wine. Okay, so you're selling retirement plans. So what, do you think your audience is there to see what kind of wine to drink? No, they probably want some advice on, hey, you've got a new IRA, you've got a new financial advisor, maybe what's going on in your area or things that you're doing in your company, but they don't go to you for wine recommendations. So I'm a digital strategist. Are you gonna ask me what kind of, I don't have any kids, you're gonna ask me what kind of lunch to feed your kids? No, it's the same thing. So all that data she was getting on all of her clients, was that gonna do her any good? Or was the top line gonna do better? I'll give you another example. No, let's not do it. Let's get into what to do. But I see examples like that all the time where people latch onto those very small, minute pieces of data. So red or white wine isn't going to sell financial products. It may be good to give your clients after they become clients and then, hey, here you go. Mike, you like red or white wine? Here you are. Here's some red wine. But I'm not going to buy from them just because they say, hey, well, we see you really like Zinfandel and Syrah. Okay, so we're getting off topic. But what is the right data? What is the right data to use? Big data, small data. Guess what all data should start with? Your goal, your marketing goals, right? So what's your marketing goal? So most of the time, marketing goals fall into 3 categories, right? Anyone want to take a crack at what those 3 are? Simple, reach, engagement, and conversions, right? You either want to reach people, you want to get them to do something, or you want to get them to buy something. So conversion and engagement are sometimes the same thing, sometimes they're different. But really, all marketing analytics fall into those 3 categories. There's variations, of course, like, oh, reach, did you reach 18 to 34-year-olds? Did you reach men? Did you reach women? But it's all reach, amplifying your message. So I have a CPG client that couldn't figure out why their reach and engagement was down on Facebook. And it was as simple, no big data, no 10 hours of analysis, downloaded their Facebook data, organized it by what posts had the most engagement. There was the answer. They had thought they knew their clients or their audience, right, by what they thought they saw. And all it took was an outside person to show them. And that was as simple as downloading it into a spreadsheet, sorting it by engagement, which was likes, comments, shares on a particular post. And the ones that had the most, if it wasn't a holiday, which, you know, we all know holidays, saying Happy New Year stuff is, but those were the types of things that their clients and audience wanted to see. It's what they expected of them. And guess what? 2 months later, when they started doing that kind of stuff, guess what happened to their engagement and reach? It was that simple. But someone else had come to them and said, big data, you need to dive in. You need to get into there. And what I try to remind people is it's not always huge. Again, think about where big data started. It was genomics, machine learning, astrophysics. Is anybody here doing any of those three things? Okay. So think of, I mean, you know, we want to, people get into these predictive models and they get into these traps of, we want to see where all this, you know, what is this doing? What, okay, how many women are in the audience? Okay, great. How many people are native Californians? Great. How many people are over 30? You know, you try to segment too much and what happens? Analysis paralysis. You spend too much time on the things that don't really matter and not enough time selling your clients, selling your product, selling your brand. So one other example I have is a tour company that came to me. They're a very popular tour company in Los Angeles. And they said, Apryl, you know what? Our sales are down. We're dying. We don't know what to do. So I said, okay, show me the data. They gave me 4 years of sales data. And here's what I did, and all of you can do this. Everybody know, you know, X and Y. It's like data over time. Super easy. I stuck it in a graph, sales over time. Guess what? Their sales weren't down. Their sales were actually up. But they had less money. What do you think was happening? Right, and costs had gone up. So they hadn't gone to thinking about, oh, cost. And so I just showed them very simply just to take that sales data. They hadn't taken that sales data, put it in one place, put sales over the months, and saw what they were doing. So after that, I designed a survey for them and got a little more detailed, which is a whole different thing, and gave them, you know, how they could improve and how they can improve their profits. But all they had to do was, so in between before they talked to me, they talked to all these other people about, well, we'll get you more sales, we can get you more impressions, we can get you more this, nobody had gone and looked at the sales data and said, okay, wait, now let's stop and take a look at what's going on, right? And that's another client that we're just getting who's this motivational speaker that's got hundreds of thousands of followers. They're really engaged. She's got all these people. She's verified on Facebook and Twitter. You know, she's a good name. But her problem right now is that she has the same amount. She's not growing anymore. So where do you think I'm starting? What's worked in the past? What hasn't worked? Who she's reaching and who she's not reaching, right? So it makes perfect sense. So the point of all this is to just step back, take a look at the simplicity. Because y'all remember, usually the simplest explanation is correct, right? So why is this happening? Well, aliens came down and no, right? It's usually just very simple. Keep it simple, stupid. They say, you know, I completely live by that. And some people get disappointed. They wanted these big formulas and all this. I will give you that until the cows come home if you really want great, you know, algorithms and this and that. But honestly, I want to say 90% of all the recommendations I give, it's taken me over a decade to figure this out. The simpler the formula, the better the insight, the easier it is to move on and not get caught up in all these data, right? So figure out, is your goal engagement? Is it reach? What is it? And just make a quick visualization. I met a CEO years ago, and it didn't dawn on me until just in the last year. But he used to do this. He used to make little line graphs for him. Even people who have a Mac and just numbers, it's so ridiculously easy to put those two columns and just throw it in there and look at, you know, what is it doing, up, excuse me, up or down? Because it doesn't lie. Is it down? Is it going like this? Is it up? That will give you kind of at least an idea of where to start. And it's incredibly simple, and I understand not everybody likes to do that kind of stuff, but if you can visualize yourself what's happening with your own brand, you have less dependence on people like me, or at the very least, you have more understanding, so that when you go in and talk to people, you know, and you can ask the right questions, because they can't, you know, that's, again, another topic, but you should know your brand, your client, and what you're doing, and not just depend on, okay, here's what the data guy says, at least try to understand it. And you'll be surprised how easy it is and how much power it gives you just knowing that. But that's really the kind of the message I wanted to get out, and I bet you guys have questions. Somebody told me they wrote a bunch down, and if they did, cool, let's hear them. But I'd love to take your questions about all of this. And if you don't have any, it's fine. I'll just start reciting pi 3.1415.
Mike has the mic.
Sorry.
Looking for the microphone.
Oh, right.
Okay. Question. Sorry.
Not really a question, just I want to thank you for that simplicity. I feel like what you said is just absolutely true, that simple formulas that have powerful impact are way better than, you know, highly complex, multivariate calculations. I feel like there's a lot of wisdom in what you said, so thank you.
Thank you. It's true. When I was forecasting at Warner Home Video, I had a colleague that was doing ARIMA modeling and Poisson theory and all kinds of stuff to forecast DVD sales. And it's really, that's like second and third year graduate level stuff. And I did simple XY graphs and I was right every time.
You've talked about existing organizations, existing products, existing services, and that's history, that's fine. What would you say to new products, new services that don't have history?
That's a great question. Great question. So there's a couple things you can do. Number one is obviously research on, you know, Google. There's a lot of data sets on Google you don't realize. Number two is commission a survey. There's your data. In fact, I'm doing that for a new client this week for a product that he has not launched. He wants to know how he should price it. He wants to know if people will like it. He wants to know if it will be bought. So what we're doing is looking at similar tech products that have launched. So those are your comps, and we use that all the time in forecasting. And number two is we're going to design a survey for him with the proper amount of people that is the demographic he thinks he wants, and get the data that way. So those are the two things you can do.
So you just talk about if you don't have any, for example, the history data in some of the field, so you can perform some survey, right? And for you, for example, to design some survey, and what we should consider about it, and to, for example, to get customer to engage them, because currently it looks like it's pretty hard to let people to really trust you and give you some of this data, and yeah, what's your considerations?
Right. It's not always, if you don't know where to look, it's not always the easiest to find. But the best thing to do is, other than my agency, give myself a plug, there are others that do survey analysis. So I always tell people to stay in their wheelhouse. Again, don't ask me to feed your kids, but ask me about data. If you don't understand it, hire somebody that does. There are a number of statisticians and research firms that will get that kind of data for you, and just ask an expert. Shop, look for the right price, make sure they're not sticking it to you, and that's where you start. And unless, you have to do a certain amount of research just so that you know how to talk to them. Like, I mean, I do in my company. I don't understand every aspect of running a business, so I consult experts, but I make sure I research ahead of time so I know what to ask them. But there's plenty of survey houses, and there's one for there's political, there's consumer packaged goods, there's tech, there's plenty of them out there. Does that answer your question?
At the last 4 startups I've been, we do a lot of product optimization, so we'll run A/B tests. And this is always the biggest source of debate in the company, is how much data do we need to actually trust one version is better than the other? And one time we hired a statistician that came in and said, oh, all the decisions you made in the last 6 months were wrong, and started on this like 3-month data exploration exercise to see the patterns over time, to see what what formulas he could use to even use the data, see if the data was normalized enough to use the techniques we wanted to. And we ended up like firing him and not even like getting the results of his data. So I feel like we're stuck between just winging it and making a judgment call from people who don't really know the numbers or the statistical significance, and hiring somebody who's going to turn it into like this incredibly long, big project.
So that's, what do they call that? Analysis paralysis you are in, unfortunately. So my recommendation to you is walk away for a minute, step back, and realize that you only need X amount of time. For example, I do A/B testing on Facebook ads for clients, and we will find the winner over a matter of weeks usually, because you know how quickly the social landscape changes and people's taste changes, and we'll make a decision and go with it. You have to recognize that you're not always going to make the right decision, and no amount of data is going to do that. In fact, more data makes the likelihood of the decision being wrong. And if you hire somebody, well, I like simplicity again. If you hire somebody to look at your data, make sure they're interested in simplicity and transparency. No project I do for any client is anything but transparent. I give them their data back, I say, here you go, here's what I found, and let them know where they can check up on it in the future. I would never have anybody look at data or anything that, web, anything like that, that wasn't completely transparent, something I could go back and, obviously I can't teach you all the decades of experience I have in doing numbers, so it's not giving the secret sauce. It's giving you tools to okay, here it is. But no matter, I don't know the size of your database, but it should be something you can solve in a matter of weeks, and then just have the confidence to move on and do it. Move past, throw some dirt on that, and, move on.
Is this working?
Yes, you have to hold it close.
Just based on the idea that we have way too much data and no time to look at it, which has been true at least since 9/11, say, what are your best processes, tools, methods for digging into that and finding something worthwhile? You're going to laugh, but do you know my biggest data tool anymore is numbers on my Mac. I used to be a SAS programmer, which is a statistical software program, and SPSS and all this other stuff. I just make line graphs in numbers all the time and figure out where to go from there. And since everything we do is digital and digital changes so quickly, we only go back a year or so, because 2 and 3, when I worked for RAP and we were doing Toyota data, the cash for clunkers and then the recall completely changed how we did anything, and we had nothing to comp to. We were comping back to the Great Depression to try to figure out when they would come out of the recall stuff, right? So that, again, we got into a little that analysis paralysis, but you shorten your data sets because the way people communicate and changing so quickly now, that you can just find easy trends over a matter of weeks and months that kind of guide you. And is numbers like Excel?
It is, except dumber. And I say that because it doesn't do pivot tables and all that. So when I need pivot tables and stuff, I use Google Docs on mine. But Excel numbers, it's easy. Go ahead.
What sort of deliverables would you suggest to avoid paralysis by analysis when you're hiring someone? Would you just want a schema or some sort of concept first of what you're going to get?
Yeah, so when I talk with clients, some clients want more data than others, because some people are better at math than others, period. So for my hotel clients, they get a one sheet of how they're doing. And at the top, so one hotel client we're looking at Facebook, TripAdvisor, and Instagram. At the top of each, there's 3 columns. There's a graphic on each that shows the direction they're going into, and underneath are the insights, and that tells them how we're doing on engagement, how we're doing on our other goals, and how we're driving room nights and revenue. So I have another client, though, who likes more numbers, and he wants to see tables and explanation, so he gets a PowerPoint or a PDF of different slides for each of those platforms or digital things we're doing for him. So it all depends. When you're looking for somebody, I will show you examples of, here's some client work, we can do this or this, and I show you examples. That's the kind of thing you look for. Look for what you can understand. Anyone who has a one-size-fits-all, run. Does that help?
Back here.
Hi, I'm Amy Wenslow. We work with new consumer products, and we get them ready for very large volume sales really quickly without a lot of inventory. My question for you, first off, I love this topic because we actually started tracking some very simple metrics. And I mean, we went really high tech. We pulled out an 18-inch by 24-inch piece of paper and some markers. And it's like a chart. That's it. But we track about 8 different metrics. And it's revolutionizing how we're thinking about the entire business in a matter of just a couple weeks of changes. What metrics could you suggest to measure our performance for our clients? Like, number of projects in the pipeline, how many are we working on per day? Something in the customer service area. And I'm not sure what it is. Do you have any ideas?
So you want to measure how you're performing for your clients.
How are we satisfying them on a daily basis? I don't want to wait till the end of the week or the end of the month, but are we meeting that daily? Because if we meet it daily, we'll meet it every other time.
Okay, so daily might be too much, but maybe a couple times, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, because maybe one day I don't want to talk to you because I'm in a bad mood, so you're not making me happy. You have to, that's part of what studying biology taught me, was no matter how good your model is, there's things you will never account for, ever, 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 which is why the weather report's never 100% correct, the hurricanes are never going, you can't. So daily, maybe change that expectation a little to a few times a week. And then first, are you asking them? Because then you can just have yourself a little sheet. Okay, did this call go well? Yes. Did they send a happy email? Yes. And then chart it like that over time, and how many times they ask you to do more, how many more of them you're getting, if they have issues and if they're taken care of. So it's a lot of empirical data that you just have to put down on a sheet. That's where I would start.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I'm John McLean. I'm going to ask you to make a prediction that might be outside of your area. What's a data set that in a few years we'll see these big data analytics tools applied to where nobody is doing any kind of analysis right now?
It's hard to say because I swear almost everything that you can analyze, people are analyzing. I mean, politics, weather, religion, migration of honeybees. Data is it's in everything, whether you know it or not. I remember in algebra class, every day there'd be this girl, what am I ever going to use this for? And it's in everything. I usually surf every morning, and I'll see sometimes if I was sitting there spacing out, I'll remember the formula of a wave. Data is being used for every single thing. There are data sets in everything, whether you know it or not. So for something, it's kind of nebulous, like what would be a data set use, what's somebody going to have data on in the future? I really can't have a good answer for that other than if there is something new, I'm dying to see it because I can't think of it.
So my name is Mati. I wanted to answer your question real quick. One of the things, Felix over here, Felix, stand up. So Felix runs Pasadena Big Data Group. So you want really interested in it, talk to Felix and he'll tell you about his meetup. We meet once a month here in Pasadena at OpenX. Right now in the big data arena, I help run Big Data Camp LA. Trust me, everyone's putting their minds to it. It's a question of when they get results that will surprise us. But right now they're trying to figure out all kinds of crazy stuff. You look at Jawbone, how Jawbone was hooked up to people, and they found out how many people woke up due to the earthquake in the Bay Area. Really interesting stuff going on. And now with the Internet of Things and wearables, just start imagining, the medical stuff. It's crazy. So.
Right, there's more ways to collect data, which is awesome. So that's part of my unknown, because I'm not in school anymore like this cat is over here. But we're getting so much more of it. Everybody has thought of, well, I would love to get data on, which foot is Apryl balancing on more? I don't know, that one's not going to tell us, but it's really exciting, the collection methods.
Hi, my name is Larry.
Hi.
When my daughter was in college, she needed a math class, and she's not a math person, so I told her to take statistics because it would always help her. But isn't everything boiled down to understanding which data is relevant and how to ask questions?
Yes, you're absolutely right. What's relevant and what to ask. That's absolutely right. That's the simplicity.
Hi, it was great that you comment about data. What I really like to know is from your experience of a decade of learning, what is the most predicting factor with the consumer shopping behavior, meaning the consumer actually whip out their pocketbook and buy? And another is, what is the predicting factor of a trend? That when you see the data, what is most highly correlated and can predict the data?
Those are great questions. So the biggest thing I have seen that predicts consumer behavior is pop culture. So when I was working at Warner Brothers, like I said, I had these very simple models of what DVDs were going to sell. And like a couple of other people had these, ARIMA models and whatever, as I said. But there's part of that big data people, super statisticians will never get because you have to add the art in there. And that's a big part of when you're doing regression modeling. Like my master's thesis was on regression modeling, and we put a lot of art into that. So, for example, when we predicted Happy Feet, we had to think about, okay, it was nominated for an Oscar, it was going to be released right about this certain time, and when it was released, we had to predict first so that it would be in the stores, right? So that we wouldn't waste product, et cetera, or get a lot of returns. We wouldn't know if it was going to win an Oscar. We would already have the prediction, and it was around Easter. Well, with just simple models and comps, what is like it, what are comparable movies, et cetera, and how did they perform, we did it accurately. There was zero waste. It was like one of our best pieces. I'm still like about that all the time. So one predictor, or when you're looking at a trend, it's a lot of that science, with regression, whether it's linear or exponential, but you have to put in the pop culture. So what's popular right now? Well, things are moving very quickly. So right now, everybody's really excited the election's over, and everybody's really happy that some of us are really happy to see Christmas ads, the other ones of us are going, oh, please, we just got done with Halloween. So it's in the time. So pop culture, seasonality, probably two of the biggest things when you're looking at trends and not going back too far. Because the last few years, a lot of things have changed, especially well over the last decade. 9/11, all these, the financial crash, et cetera. So you have to just quickly change it and not be married to that model for too long.
Over here.
Hello, thanks for coming out and speaking. And I wanted to piggyback off of what that gentleman said about, seems like it boils down to questions. So in the last 2 years, because everything kind of changed, it seems like there's so much information, and then there's a heavy reliance on insight, or it's not valuable without insight. And so it's all about those questions that you're asking, which is what statisticians do in design, I think. And then, but how do, I'm going to make some generalizations, and I hope that's okay. But like, with statisticians, with the generalization just being more techie, or more like the tools into crunching numbers, like personalities that do that really well. And then it seems like there's a need for like people with a different data or different character set, like strengths, like understanding people and connections and how to draw out meaning. And those people don't necessarily know how to use those tools maybe, or aren't natural at that. So what do you recommend for like resources or tools? Is that shift even happening?
No, I know what you're talking. No, I understand. You're absolutely right. So there's two kinds of data or strategic types that I've come across. There's the hardcore statistician, which is more of an engineering personality. Right. And then there is the business major that has more of the outgoing personality. And so you have to be both. And I was fortunate in that I quickly realized in grad school that I did not want to stay in academia and research because I like to say hi and talk to people. And my instructors and the other students would always get upset at me because I was so social. So I had more of the business side. But those business people don't always have that. So you need someone that can either do both or can translate for you. So I'm not sure what the translator title is, but I know when I was leaving my college that there's colleges around now that have programs like the ChemBA, which you have an MBA, but you have a strong chemistry degree, or there's more math-based. So you need those translators, and they're incredibly important because you've got, you know, like my younger brother is just a numeric genius, but he would bore you because you have to keep talking to him. It doesn't do this with me, but you'd be like, oh, so what's your name, Chris? How old are you? What do you do? Do you have kids? Yeah. How many? 3. You know, so you have to know how to talk to those people, and then you have to know how to talk to the real extroverts or the real business people.
But where's the, like, say for instance, like the job market in general, when are they going to know that they need translators? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So that's a good question, and that's probably why I stopped working for other people and started my own agency.
Gotcha.
Because I was always in the numbers departments, but in the presentation departments as well, and that not everybody likes a type A that sits there and does their numbers. We're supposed to sit in the corner and, you know. So where they are in the job market, I don't know, but you do need the translators. And they're out there. There's a lot of really brilliant people out there that know how to, more than you realize, because it's not you're either a numbers person or you're not. There's a lot of people out there that kind of get it, and artists and musicians, they don't realize how much they know numbers, but they do. And it's just really communication, which is a whole other topic.
right, okay.
This will be our last question.
Hi, April.
Hi.
So you talked about how pop culture is helpful as a predictor. You talked about how you need to simplify with things like just put it across dates, show it over time and trend. Are there other kinds of data sets or data points that are really obvious that people have a tendency to overlook?
Well, not so much data sets, but kind of their own prejudices. I have somebody that says, a client, I never use Facebook, so it's worthless. So putting in their own bias is probably the third thing I would say. Just because I don't want a steak, that doesn't mean you don't want a steak, and I want to sell you a steak.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get a picture of everybody real fast.
Okay.
All right, so everybody in the background smile. Yes. And your marks, get set, go.